Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, former lead House impeachment manager in Donald Trump's second impeachment trial, and author of Unthinkable: Trauma, Truth, and the Trials of American Democracy. Congressman Raskin, thank you very much for coming to the Saturday show. Your reaction to this story and Justice Alito's response.
Well, Justice Alito's response makes it clear he understands that it was a political symbol to turn the American flag upside down. It's a universal symbol of political distress, and in this case, of specific opposition to the inauguration of Joe Biden. It's what the MAGA right was calling for at that point. If it were not a very clear political symbol whose meaning is well understood, Justice Alito would not have gone to great pains to blame everything on his wife. In any event, the U.S. Supreme Court is the only court in the federal judiciary, indeed the only court in the land, that does not have a binding ethics code where you could actually go and complain to some tribunal about what's happening. And what we need is to have, at the very least, an ethics panel of federal circuit judges from around the country who we can bring complaints to of bias in the event, in the very likely event that Justice Alito does not decide to heed the calls to recuse himself from this case. But it's a very clear conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm. And what you're talking about, is that a provision or provisions in the Judicial Ethics Enforcement Act of 2024 that you and your Democratic colleagues introduced in committee? I'm just wondering, one, how would that act hold justices accountable? And has the bill even had a committee hearing yet?
Well, no. Under the Republicans, there have been no hearings on any of the ethics reform legislation pertaining to the Supreme Court. But yes, that is a provision, and it's one of the very strong ideas we have. I mean, another possibility is to create an inspector general for the U.S. Supreme Court to be reviewing all of the very inadequate financial disclosures, the travel, the junkets, the money gifts. Look, if you're in the U.S. House of Representatives or you're from the U.S. Senate, members don't even go to Starbucks and accept free coffee from a lobbyist. But if you're on the Supreme Court, there are members taking automobiles, stagecoaches, private school tuition for family members. They're helping to pay for family members' property. It's like, the billionaire sugar daddies who are in that Federalist Society ecosystem are able to fasten on to particular justices. And, the ethical temperature there has just plummeted. So, as the Supreme Court jurisprudence drives to the right, the specific members get more and more lax, both about their own political commitments, but also their own financial entanglements with the billionaire class.
And so then I would take it that the answer to my question, should Justice Alito and, for that matter, Justice Thomas, should they recuse themselves from election 2020 related cases? Your answer would be yes.
Well, of course they should. But, as we were just saying, the House of Representatives is not doing anything to try to improve the situation. They are protecting the chaos and the ethical collapse of the Supreme Court. So we're going to have to try to deal with this through elections and the assertion of popular power, because we have a completely corrupt governing class going right up to the Supreme Court.
Okay, Congressman Raskin, we have to talk about the chaos that erupted on Thursday that you were smack in the middle of, as we saw in the opening at the House Oversight and Accountability Committee markup on the resolution to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt. Let's watch another piece of it. Watch this.
Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Mr. Chairman,
that's beneath even
the order of your committee.
Order.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Green's words.
That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Aw.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play.
Okay, for folks who don't know, when you hear a woman of color proceed anything with baby girl, you better run. Congressman Raskin, you said in that clip, quote, "That's beneath even you, Ms. Green." How shocked were you by this behavior?
Well, look, the thing about discussion in a parliamentary body, which is by definition filled with a lot of emotion and passion, is you can talk about substance, you can talk about process, you can invoke science, you can invoke culture, you can invoke literature. The one thing that you cannot do is to engage in ad hominem personal attacks. You cannot insult someone's looks in the United States House of Representatives. So the Democrats moved, the vice-ranking member of the committee, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, moved immediately to have her words taken down. And the chair of the committee did not have the moral authority or the leadership within his own ranks to be able to do it because they're all afraid of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she basically, is constantly threatening that she's going to turn her millions of Twitter followers on anybody who gets in her way. So they refused to take her words down and to keep her from speaking for the rest of the hearing. I told the chairman, if you allow it to go down the road of personal insults and ad hominem attacks, and I've never seen a chair allow that to happen, there will be no end to it. We will dissolve into chaos. And of course we did.
Congressman, real quick, one last question. That committee meeting was actually postponed from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. so that Republican committee members could attend Donald Trump's New York trial. How did you feel about that?
Terrible. I mean, it was supposed to be set for 11 a.m. They changed it in the middle of the night, so everybody's schedules were thrown into chaos. But they skipped out on their actual legislative duties. A number of them missed votes on the floor of the House of Representatives. And they came back, and it was just a frat house atmosphere. And all they really wanted to do was to provoke and taunt our members. And Marjorie Taylor Greene obviously was the lead in doing that. And one member of their side, to her credit, Lauren Boebert, voted with us not to allow Marjorie Taylor Greene to persist in her antics and her provocations. And so good for Lauren Boebert that she at least was able to stand up for the rules of the House of Representatives. But Marjorie Taylor Greene now is like Donald Trump in that she's lawless, she's incorrigible, she's provocative. All she wants is the limelight, and they refuse to deal with that problem. They will not curb her in any way.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, thank you very much for coming to the Saturday show.